Hillary Clinton is back, and this time she's talking about prosecuting Americans for engaging in so-called propaganda. What is propaganda? Who gets to decide what propaganda is and what it's not? Does Hillary Clinton decide? One suspects that her definition would be quite broad. The word propaganda is subjective. One person's propaganda may be another person's truth. And trusting Hillary Clinton and the Democrats to decide what propaganda is will likely lead to mass censorship of their political opponents. And in today's polarized climate, who do you think will decide what propaganda is? Big tech? Big government? Hillary Clinton herself? These are the same entities that have been censoring Americans for years, and Hillary Clinton's comments will only likely further the cause of censorship in America.
Just as Mueller indicted a lot of Russians who were engaged in direct election interference and boosting Trump back in 2016. But I also think there are Americans who are engaged in this kind of propaganda. And whether they should be civilly or even in some cases criminally charged is something that would be a better deterrent.
Therefore, to many Americans, Hillary's comments represent a major attack on freedom of speech and the First Amendment. In any case, what about Hillary Clinton's own propaganda that she has spouted throughout the years? Take, for example, her claims that she was convinced that there was collusion between members of the Trump campaign in 2016 and the Russian government. Yet, that turned out to be completely false, as proved by special counsel Robert Mueller, who spent years investigating whether there was collusion between Trump, his associates, and Russia. He found that there wasn't.
So after a long look, after a long investigation, after so many people have been so badly hurt, after not looking at the other side, where a lot of bad things happened, a lot of horrible things happened, a lot of very bad things happened for our country. It was just announced there was no collusion with Russia, the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. There was no collusion with Russia.
And then there was the time in 2017 when Hillary Clinton claimed that Trump did not condemn the white supremacists and neo-Nazis at a rally in Charlottesville. Yet again, Trump actually had condemned those neo-Nazis and white nationalists at the time, in a clip that today is still misrepresented by much of the American media.
But for Trump, that is just par for the course. This is someone who retweets white supremacists online, like the user who goes by the name White Genocide TM. Trump took this fringe bigot with a few dozen followers and spread his message to 11 million people. His campaign famously posted an anti-Semitic image, a Star of David, imposed over a sea of dollar bills that first appeared on white supremacist websites.
Kamala Harris even made this false claim in a debate recently with Donald Trump, and the ABC moderators did not fact-check her. And this is a good example of why criminalizing so-called propaganda simply leads to political censorship. Kamala believes, or says that she believes, that Donald Trump said that there were fine people on both sides of a white nationalist neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville in 2017. Yet, the Trump campaign says that's not true. They say that in the same clip in which Kamala Harris is quoting, he explicitly states that he's not endorsing white nationalists and neo-Nazis. And therefore, what Kamala Harris is saying is propaganda. Should Kamala Harris go to prison for spreading so-called propaganda on national TV in front of millions of Americans? one suspects that Hillary Clinton doesn't think so.
The new GB News shop is now online and it's better than ever. With a whole new range from caps to t-shirts, pint glasses to pens, blankets to bags, there's something for every GB News fan. Whether you're a dedicated viewer, a proud supporter, or looking for the perfect gift, we've got you covered. GB News, the People's Channel. Now with the products you love. Visit gbnews.com/shop today.
Hillary's choice of words is bizarre. She talks about so-called election interference from the Russians, but then she also conflates that with what Americans could be doing in their own election. But isn't that how democracy works? Americans are allowed to interfere in their election as they see it. If they want to support one candidate or another, they can interfere or influence the election to try and support their favoured team. That's how democracy works. And we've seen these calls for censorship before, until Elon Musk bought his platform Twitter, now called X. Many prominent conservative voices, including President Trump, were banned from that platform. They banned Trump after the January 6th riots. And this seems like another example of the Democrats trying to censor their political opponents. And don't forget, in 2020, Facebook have admitted that they toned down or tried to suppress a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which they were concerned could be so-called Russian propaganda. Yet, it turned out the story was true. The only people spreading propaganda around the Hunter Biden laptop story were those who claimed that it was false and that the story itself was Russian propaganda. It's ironic, isn't it? It seems that Hillary Clinton is simply obsessed with Russia. She can't get over the fact that she lost the 2016 campaign against Donald Trump, and in order to explain away her defeat, she has to blame everyone but herself for that terrible campaign that she ran in 2016. And one of those people that she continues to blame for that election result is the Russians. It's something that she cannot get out of her head. Now, I also want to go back to one of the most famous moments from the 2016 campaign, and this perhaps explains some of Hillary's attitudes today towards Trump voters. Remember when Hillary Clinton labelled Trump voters as a basket of deplorables?
You know, to just be grossly generalistic, you could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
She didn't just attack Trump, her opponent, she went after his supporters, ordinary, hard-working Americans who felt that they had been alienated by the political elite in both parties for decades in America. And now she seems to be going after the exact same people, those who she thinks are spreading propaganda, and she even wants to criminalize them and perhaps send them to prison. And here's the truth. Hillary's disdain for Trump voters hasn't gone away. And now she no longer wants to insult them, she wants to put them in prison. She wants to criminalize them for their own opinions. This same elitist attitude lost her the election in 2016, and instead of reflecting on that, she's simply doubling down. At the end of the day, this is not about Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or any other political figure. This is about Americans' fundamental right to freedom of speech under the First Amendment. And when you start censoring people for their political opinions, or what you describe as propaganda, you are heading down a very slippery slope indeed, and that slope leads towards tyranny. Clinton's comments should represent a wake-up call for anyone who cares about freedom of speech in America and around the world. Because if this kind of rhetoric becomes policy, then your speech could be labelled tomorrow as simply propaganda and censored, and you could even go to prison and be criminalised for speaking your mind. For years, Democrats and other politicians around the world have been hosting a moral panic around so-called disinformation and misinformation. This is another reason why Hillary Clinton tried to explain away her election result loss in 2016. Labeling things misinformation is just another step towards censoring speech. This is what they've done on Facebook and other platforms, particularly around the coronavirus pandemic, when they labelled various things around the vaccines as misinformation that again later turned out to be true. So whether it's misinformation or propaganda, the Democrats have found another word to try and label their opponents in order to both imprison them and censor them online. This isn't a world that Americans or anyone else should want to live in. So what do you think about freedom of speech and about Hillary Clinton's comments? If you want to let us know, please comment below and subscribe to the GBNAmerica YouTube channel. We want to hear from you.